So it's been nearly 6 weeks since I've applied the Scott's Bonus S Weed and Feed, and in this video I'm going to share the results or lack of results. I'll show you kind of my experience, what I've seen after using the product. Again, the Scott's Bonus S Weed and Feed serves two purposes. It's both a feed, so it's going to be a fertilizer, and then also the weed portion of that is weed control. So the active ingredient in the product is atrazine, which has both post-emergent and pre-emergent characteristics. So it's going to both kill or control, suppress weeds you're seeing now, and then also help prevent new weeds from appearing in the lawn. Now what I'll do is I'll share some of the areas, those same areas that I showed you when I applied it in an earlier video, and kind of we'll compare some results. So this little area right here I've got marked. This is the area that had the dichondra. And you can see, again, this is about 6 weeks after application. I'm just now starting to see this dichondra kind of weaken, yellow a bit from what it looked like 6 weeks ago. One of the main purposes for me using a weed and feed, which I typically would not do, I'd usually just do fertilizer applications and then follow up with liquid weed control as necessary, was to treat this Virginia copperleaf weed, which is just throughout my yard. And unfortunately the Scott's Bonus S has not really had any effect on reducing or killing off any of that Virginia copperleaf. It's also called three-seeded mercury. So a little disappointing there. And then what I'll do is I'll take you around back and show you some of the other areas that I shot previously, and we'll just compare results. All right, so this is the backyard here. Well, I'm walking up to this area over here. Let's talk a little bit about the feed portion of the product, the fertilization. I would say good. Now, that was 6 weeks ago, and since then, about a week, 10 days ago, I did apply a second round of fertilizer. I did not use the weed and feed product. I just used a standard 15-0-15 fertilizer product that I have. So the results you're seeing here are kind of, I guess, maybe a combination, right? You have the weed and feed, Scott's Bonus S, which is kind of waning off as you get to 6 to 8 weeks, and then I hit it again with that 15-0-15 about a week, 10 days ago. Now in this area here, I have the Virginia buttonweed. This was another weed in here that I was hoping to get decent control or at least suppression out of the Scott's Bonus S, and again, not really seeing anything notable here. It's still growing just as vigorous in this particular area. I'll take you back over here in this corner. It's another area where I've got a lot of that copperleaf coming up. Just a lot of different things happening, some sedges, things like that. You won't see any control on sedges, nut sedge, kalinga, anything like that using Scott's Bonus S. This is another area I showed you previously on the initial application video. Kind of a sparse, thin area of my lawn. Slowly starting to fill in over time, which kind of happens. I talked about it being kind of cyclical. Every year I see this area thin out and then kind of fill in. Some of the weeds we talked about earlier, so there's some oxalis in here. Still not really seeing great results with oxalis. It looks kind of weak right now, but I'm thinking that's just due to the temperatures. It's been in the 90s for the last several days here, and it's time to get some water down in this area here. But it does look a little droopy. But other than that, not really any good control on the oxalis that's in this area here. Finally, let me show you this area along my property line here, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about my feelings on the product, my thoughts on the results. So you can see through here, this is that mugwort. Now, 6 weeks ago, this didn't look anything like this. They were just smaller plants, but you can see they've kind of come up and have grown quite vigorously in this area. So again, the Scott's Bonus S, no effect on that. I am seeing some spurge in here. This, I believe, came about after application. So if you kind of think of the Scott's Bonus S, you know, how well does it work as a pre-emergent against something like spurge? In my case, I saw all this spurge come up through here. But one thing I just wanted to point out, and you'll be able to see in the before footage, is the St. Augustine is really taking ground here quite a little bit more quickly than I would have thought. So I'm really happy about that. So you put all the weeds aside, and the St. Augustine is actually filling in pretty nicely. So what are my thoughts on the Scott's Bonus S Weed and Feed? Well, from a fertilizer perspective, it's good, just as good as any other. From a weed control, there's some things you need to know. One, just because it's a weed and feed, it's not going to kill every single weed you have in your lawn. The active ingredient atrazine is a selective weed control, so it's only going to be effective on certain weeds. And in my case, I was just being overly optimistic. Of the weeds I've shown you, it's really only the dichondra that is listed on the atrazine labels as a weed that it will control. All the others, the oxalis, the Virginia buttonweed, the Virginia copperleaf, all those other weeds that I was showing you, the mugwort that I had over in this area over here, all of that is not listed on the label as a weed that atrazine would effectively treat. So I can't blame the product for not killing that weed in my lawn. I was just hoping that, though it wasn't listed, it would be a weed that at least suppress or knock out a little bit. But that didn't happen. So just be mindful of that. One, with Scott's Bonus S, it's only you can only use that on certain warm season grass types. So read the label, know that you have the grass that it is safe to use that product on. In my case, I have St. Augustine grass. Two, know that the product is not going to kill every single weed in your lawn. And even with the weed like dichondra, the recommendation on that with atrazine is it usually takes a second application, and that kind of looks like what I have. Is even after 6 weeks, it's starting to weaken. I'm showing signs of some die-off in that dichondra, but it looks like it's going to need a second application. And third and finally, you must be patient when using Scott's Bonus S with atrazine, or any product using atrazine for that matter. It's going to take time for that chemical to get absorbed through the roots of the plant before it starts taking effect on that particular plant. So allow yourself 4 to 6 weeks to start seeing results, and that's why I'm showing this video now 6 weeks later, to try to give you an idea on what to expect. Just because it's a weed and feed product and you put it out, don't look for your whole lawn to recover and look beautiful after just a few short days. Give it time, let the product work, and hopefully after a number of weeks you have a beautiful yard. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. You all have a great day.